Great. Okay, well, I think we'll get started. So thanks everybody for joining us from wherever you are in the world at the moment to think about advancing rural water services. My name is Saskia Nowitzki. I'm based at the University of Oxford, and I'll be hosting us in the main Zoom room today. So we're going to be talking about professionalizing rural water services, including strengthening systems at local and national levels to better support maintenance and water safety management activities. We have a great set of speakers who will be sharing their perspective and experiences today. They're calling in from Kenya, Uganda, hopefully Ethiopia, Nepal, Switzerland, the Netherlands, the UK, and the United States. So a big thanks to all of them for joining us. I also want to say a quick thanks to Pranav Chintalapati, Namira Khan, and Caleb Cord, who are going to be helping us behind the scenes today. And thanks also to the UNC team who have helped us set all of this up, and to NRCE, Natural Resources Consulting Engineers, for choosing to sponsor this side event. So we have a full agenda today, and I hope you will enjoy it. We're going to kick off in a moment with 4 short pre-recorded presentations, and after that we'll be moving into 2 breakout rooms, which I will explain a bit more later. And then we'll be coming back into this main Zoom room for a combined panel discussion on integrating maintenance and safety services. So just before we get started, I wanted to remind you of the chat box on the event page on Pathable, on the Pathable conference website. This is the chat channel that we will be watching during the session, since the general chat in the Zoom rooms has been disabled. And so especially during the breakout group panel discussions, if you have comments or questions, please put them in the chat boxes on the breakout pages on Pathable, so that will help us to follow the discussions for the separate breakout groups more easily. And if there's time, we're going to try and get some answers for your questions. I also wanted to just draw your attention to the file tab on the event page. We've uploaded some short briefs and reports, so please do download these if you want more information on the projects that we'll be discussing today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to the 4 videos that have been kindly prepared for us by Madam Edrida Musinguzi, Honorable Kisangao, Musanya Sami, Mbogo Mwaniki, and Balmukunda Kunwar. The first 2 videos are going to be focusing on maintenance services, sharing perspectives from the Ugandan Ministry of Water and Environment and the Kitui County Ministry of Water in Kenya on key issues for enabling professional maintenance service provision. The second 2 videos will discuss water safety monitoring. The first will introduce you to the water safety work that's being done at Fundifix, which is a social enterprise in Kenya that provides rural water maintenance services and is developing water safety support as well. And the second will give you an overview of the water safety work that has been done in Nepal by Helvetas and partners as part of an integrated water resources management program. So I'll hand over to Pranav now to please start the screenings.
Greetings, dear participants and organizers of this UNC 2020 Water and Health Conference. Protocol is observed. My name is Edrida Musinguzi. I come from Uganda, East Africa. I coordinate operation and maintenance in Rural Water Department of the Ministry of Water and Environment. The key sector partners like UNICEF and the Royal Danish Embassy, together with the Ministry of Water and Environment, commissioned a study to review the current management model, that is CDMS, aimed at institutionally and financially sustainable operation and maintenance model for rural water supply infrastructure. The framework focuses on a professional approach with a shift from corrective to preventive maintenance. The study resulted in the development of the national framework for O&M of water infrastructure in Uganda. The purpose of the framework is provide guidance, strengthen and streamline rural water, and aim at all levels in order to ensure long-term sustainability of the rural water facilities and to ultimately guarantee safe water consumption by the end user. The professional approach is anchored on our current CBMS and public-private partnership arrangement, and this new professional approach, we are calling it community-based maintenance system plus. Here, an area service provider, normally called a private operator, will be contracted by the district local government authority through the Water Supply Service Board to manage all water facilities which are not under the jurisdiction of the water authorities like National Water and Umbrella Authority. The community-based maintenance system principles are majorly area-based. All the water facilities are clustered in an area to be managed by an area service provider. There is a principle of financial sustainability, and this professional management approach comes with timely follow-up support and the availability of quality spare parts and tools. Another key component that the government has put in place is to strengthen capacity of local governments to transit from CBMS to CBMS Plus, and that the TSUs, that's the technical support units, currently called the regional water supply regional centers, have been restructured to support this function. And another component that is key in professionalizing the management system is to establish a robust regulator for ensuring adherence to set guidelines. The current regulator is focusing on the urban water supply, so we need a regulator for the rural water supply systems. There is also a need for proper assessment of the complexity of the water systems vis-a-vis the competence of the available service providers for right procurement decisions, because the area service providers are still in their infancy. They may sometimes you might find that they are not able to handle complex systems. Therefore, there will be scenarios where these systems will be handed over to national water for management. Another key component is on finance. Government should provide a subsidy or fund for operation and maintenance in this infancy stage. The O&M fund will be disbursed to the rural water regional centers and cascaded downwards. It's the role of government to give guidance also on tariff setting. And currently, some districts have asset registers, so it is important that asset analysis is rolled out to all the districts that will have the cap manix costings for proper planning for operation and maintenance. And government has also been in charge of coordinating all players in the sector, so strengthening the coordination role of all the O&M players to harmonize their operations is critical. Another requirement from our partners and NGOs is to lobby government and advocate for an operational and maintenance fund for all rural water district water authorities. The key activity now is disseminating the new O&M framework to lower local governments. The ministry, together with some partners like IRC and UNICEF, have managed to disseminate up to a regional level. The capacity of potential service providers is also important. For example, hand pump mechanics association and water bodies currently may not be having the capacity to take up this function of managing the water facilities. So it is important the civil society organizations come in place to build their capacity. And lastly, but not least, community mobilization and mindset change should be part or should be on the agenda for the CSOs and other partners. It is hoped that with professionalization of management of rural water facilities, functionality will improve our set target of 100% by 2030. They are leaving no one behind. I submit for God and my country, Uganda.
Yeah, so mandate for water service provision in Kenya was decentralized from national to 47 county governments in year 2013, and Kitui County Government is one of the 47 counties in Kenya taking on this responsibility. I am today joined by Honorable Emmanuel Kisangao, the Kitui County Minister for Water. Thank you, Mr. Emmanuel, for hosting me. Honorable Kisangao, so today we are talking about improving maintenance of rural water supplies, and specifically about how to promote the establishment of professional maintenance service providers who can be engaged by communities to help improve functionalities and reduce repair times for rural water points. In Kitui, for instance, you have an example of Fundefix, who are also working in close coordination with the Kitui County Government. We know from recent results that these professional maintenance service providers can deliver much improved functionality outcomes, but we want to know how such models can be established and scaled up. So on to my first question. From the county government's perspective in Kitui, what do you see as the most important elements that are needed to support maintenance service providers? More so, what are the conditions that need to be in place?
I will say what needs to be put in place is the legal framework that guides the operation of both the county and such service providers. And I will say that the county has already developed a policy and a bill, and this aims at enforcing rural water service performance monitoring to support wider regulation and planning. It also, second point, helps to establish a Kitui Water Service Trust Fund to be funded by the county that will provide funding support for rural water maintenance and service access for institutions. Thirdly, it will create an enabling environment for private sector participation in rural water services. For example, the bill recognizes the role of private sector actors like maintenance service providers, water vendors, and other operation and maintenance models. The bill also provides for government registration and contracting of service providers. And it also aims to entrench ring fencing of water revenues and provide exclusive service areas for economies of scale and viability of service providers.
Thank you very much for your responses to that question. In my second question, I would also want to know from you, what do you think that development partners, that is non-governmental organizations, donors, and others, should do to help with this, or what should they stop doing?
I would say that from the resources that they mobilize, I would recommend they align their programs to support county governments to deliver on their vision and goals. They also need to cooperate and coordinate with all the WASH actors within their area of operation, like Kitui WASH Forum, which brings together over 50 WASH stakeholders for quarterly planning. They also need to address post-construction sustainability of rural water infrastructure and sources to ensure long-term service delivery.
Again, thank you very much for those informative responses. And my last question relates to what you see as the most important role of government in helping set up such service providers.
The role of government is to provide enabling policy environment, which includes the incentives for performance of service providers. It is also the responsibility of the government to allocate funding for rural water services so as to achieve universal access in line with the Sustainable Development Goals 2030. The government is also supposed to lead and in coordination of partners and programs within the sector for efficiency and productivity.
Many thanks, Honorable Kisangao, for sharing your perspectives with us today. We wish you the very best in the delivery of universal water service access in Kitui County and for the residents and communities in Kitui. Thank you very much.
Thank you, too, Cliff.
Our work is conducting water quality monitoring and sanitary inspection. We also communicate results and give guidance on improving drinking water safety.
In this short video, we show you around our lab and demonstrate some of the work that we do. Welcome.
Welcome to our lab.
The main power supply is electricity, but we also have a solar backup. If the electricity power goes off, it will switch itself automatically to ensure that there is continuous supply of power. Then we have our fridge here. On the freezer part, we normally keep the ice cubes. We also have different standard solutions, and we also have different reagents, like we have Colilax, and also we have acid buffers, and then we also have cleaning solutions for different props. We keep our meters. For example, we have this arc meter, and this arc meter, we connect it with different probes.
This is the carrier bag that we usually travel with it to the field. This is the cooler box. This thermometer, so that we can track the temperature of our samples. So after that, now I am done. So I have to keep this one in the cooler box.
I want now to add the Colilax into the E. coli sample.
The Colilax is the food for the bacteria.
And you also make sure you don't spill. Then you shake it for some time to make sure that it dissolves.
You take this sample, you pour it into this quantity tray. This is how we normally do it. We fit it. Pass it through the quantity tray sealer. So now our sample is completely sealed. They have gone through the incubation period. Okay, this is the sanitary inspection form. The components include things like a pump, tank, kiosk, standpipe, whether there is a chlorine disinfection. You check the GPS, you take the photo, you take the hazards that apply for that kind of component, and then you check if there are any protection measures that are applied in that component.
You find that the managers or the water users, they have limited knowledge about the water quality. We explain to them if the water has a contamination from the E. coli bacteria, what E. coli bacteria is, what causes it, and then we interpret to them the risk. We normally advise them on the various methods that they need to take to protect their sources, and then currently we are advising them on using chlorine disinfection products. Water quality monitoring is important in managing the water safety to ensure that everybody has access to clean and safe water. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Bal Mukunda Kumar and I'm working as a business development officer in Helvetas, Nepal. I'm thankful to REACH, supported by Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, AWAC, SDC and Helvetas, for providing me an opportunity to do the presentation work in water safety in Integrated Water Resources Management Program. So before starting the presentation, let me talk a few things about Helvetas Nepal. It's working in Nepal for more than 60 years in various sectors. Among these different sectors, Integrated Water Resource Management, IWRM, is also one program. IWRM basically focus on implementation of drinking water with multiple use schemes. Beside that, its major concerns are on sanitation and hygiene, irrigation, 3R, water governance, and advocacy, as well as the working approach is to make things sustainable for a longer period of time. There are 26 spring-fed systems where this project has aimed to implement water safety interventions with a controlled to REACH, supported by Foreign Commonwealth and Helvetas Nepal. These different sectors, Integrated Water Resource Management, IWRM, is also one program. IWRM basically focus on implementation of drinking water with multiple use schemes. Beside that, its major concerns are on sanitation and hygiene, irrigation, 3R, water governance, and advocacy, as well as the working approach is to make things sustainable for a longer period of time. There are 26 spring-fed systems where this project has aimed to implement water safety interventions with a controlled pre-post evaluation. It was conducted during the period of 2017 and 2018, which was a pilot phase, which was then continued with accelerated phase for 2019 to 2020, with the main motive to meet the sustainable development goals. Water safety interventions, 8 drinking water schemes were carried out, as well as training and capacity building to the users were provided, along with field robust laboratories, water safety planning, low-cost scheme upgrades, and centralized data management was carried out for this project. This project mainly focused on far western region and Karnali province, which included 5 districts and 6 rural municipalities. There were lab, installed, and then regular monitoring and sanitary inspection were carried out in the source, reservoir tank, tap, and household every month. So it's always not just about conducting this sanitary inspection, but also to make a proper monitoring arrangement. So for the proper monitoring arrangement, we have followed EquoFlow. So the basic data were generated at the community, which were collected from the mobile and then forwarded to the program level. So at the end, the data were collected in a proper manner. So now let's talk about the monitoring cost. It's wonderful to know about the monitoring cost because that's what is most important thing for any project. So from our experience, the sampling cost was nearly $2.5. Laboratory installation cost was $920, and for the training to the technician, committee members, and national actors ranged from $1,000 to $3,000. So at the end, it's also more important to know about the microbial quality or the improvement that we made after all the interventions. So from this study where we have carried out chlorination in the 5 subsystems, we found that a very nice increment in the safety at the taps and at the storage level was obtained, which is clearly presented in the graph. So that's all from our side. It's me, Balmukunda Kaur. You can connect me in my email address, and also you can visit our project page to have further information. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, so hopefully you can see I've switched the screen to a PowerPoint presentation now. Thanks again to Madam Edrida Musinguzi, Honorable Kisangao, Musanya Sami, and Mbogo Mwaniki, and Balmukunda Kunwa for those informative videos. And we apologize for any skipping or audio issues that might have come through to you on the Zoom. But we're going to move now into breakout groups where we'll be picking up on some of the topics that were introduced in the videos we've just seen, and also discussing further learning that has come out of projects in Kenya, Ethiopia, Uganda, and Nepal from the USAID Sustainable Water Systems Partnership and the REACH Water Security Program. So if you want to focus on maintenance, please head to the first breakout room by clicking on the corresponding button at the bottom of the main side event page on Pathable. And for more on water safety, please go to the second breakout room. Just to note that at the end of the breakouts in about 30 minutes, we'll be meeting back here in the main Zoom room for the closing combined panel. And to get back into this main Zoom room, you are going to need to use the event page on Pathable again and click on the join button again as you did to come in here in the first instance. So you won't automatically be pushed back into the main room. So that's all for now from me. So see you all soon and enjoy the breakouts. Thank you. So hi again, everyone. Thank you for coming back into the main Zoom room here. I hope that you can see the slide that I'm sharing at the moment. While the breakout groups are just finishing, we're going to give everyone a couple of minutes to make the transition back through the Pathable page and into this room. So we will get started with the discussion in a moment. Also, I'll get started with introducing the combined panel, and we're still waiting, I think, for some people from the water safety breakout to come back in, but let's get started. So we're going to be talking now more about integrating maintenance and safety aspects of water services. And we have a great panel that have agreed to share their thoughts on this with us. So we will be hearing from Engineer Robert Gakubia, who's the CEO of WASREB, the Water Services Regulatory Board in Kenya, and from Dr. Elizabeth Jordan, who's a water and sanitation specialist at USAID, as well as Dr. Sital Upreti, who is a postdoctoral researcher at EOWAG, and Dr. Juliana Ferrero, who is an associate professor at IHE Delft in the Netherlands. So I will start us off by just asking each of the panelists to share some key takeaways from the breakout sessions that they were in. And I will go to you first, Engineer Gakubia, if you could share just some highlights from the maintenance breakout, especially for people who were not in that breakout, to kind of catch us up to speed a bit.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator Saskia. I think I was in the maintenance breakout group, and I really want to say that as you discuss maintenance and how to professionalize it, it was very clear that the policy and legal framework must be very clear, especially in line with the aligned to the big picture of what we would want to see. We want to see a sustainable water services provider going forward, or even in the wrong picture. But to do this, then the services must be organized around a governance structure. You cannot organize ad hoc services. I mean, you cannot have ad hoc services anymore. They must be organized around a governance structure, which I think a number of countries I think already have, or they are in the progress, or they are developing one already. And also take advantage of the economies of scale, because rural water services are fragmented out there. It may take some time to organize them in a way that you are also taking advantage of economies of scale, but it is important. But as you do this, then there comes a need for robust monitoring systems, and especially all these should be read actually by government, so that even as the development partners come in to support, it is actually government taking ownership of that support and actually directing it towards its policy priorities. And I would also want to add that infrastructure developers must realize that the operation and maintenance phase of any project is, I think, the longest phase, and you really want to make it as long as possible in a way that, as they say, you want water forever from that system. That means you really have to have a very good framework that supports water forever for that system. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Engineer Gakubia, for those really clear and thorough thoughts. So I don't know if either, oh yeah, I've seen they're here with us. So I'll go next to Dr. Juliana from the water safety breakout, if you could share some of your key takeaways with us, please.
Thank you, Saskia. It was a lively discussion. It will not be possible to summarize everything in a short amount of time, but the one that I would like to remark was the attention posed on the challenges of communicating water quality data. So there were some hints on working closely with government, that is one of the key points, but also communicating the data rapidly, allowing for swift decision to be taken. And also it's critical to communicate the results in a simple way to decision makers, in a way that they can be understood and processed easily. Another very important point was the political concern on what data to share. And it was interesting to learn that in some contexts, microbial data can be shared more openly rather than chemical data. For example, in the case of Bangladesh, it's sensitive to share arsenic data, whereas in the case of Kenya, it's sensitive to share fluoride data, and that is very important also to remark. I will also cover another point, which is the discussion about the multiple sources that are normally used in rural-urban transition zones at the fringes of small towns, where we have perhaps a primary water supply and alternative water sources such as dug wells or unprotected springs. So if we think about monitoring, it's really sensitive to understand which is the data that we're actually gathering, because we tend to monitor at the point of delivery, perhaps at the delivery from the pipe network. But if the household is using multiple sources, we're underestimating basically the contamination that we can have at the household level. I think I will stop here and perhaps let other points to be covered by Sital. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks very much, Juliana. And yes, as you said, it's very difficult to cover everything that was discussed, yes. But great to hear the key highlights from you. So I'll go next to Dr. Liz Jordan, please, if you could share your highlights from the maintenance breakout.
Yeah, I think Engineer Gakubia covered a lot of what we talked about. One thing we did talk about is how we move from these fragmented to a more consolidated system, and what the role of donors is in there. And really the need to move towards financing structures that come via local governments. There was a clear acknowledgement that we are going to need to subsidize rural water operations and maintenance in many contexts, but we need to find a way for that financing to flow via the government and in a way that really incentivizes the performance we need to see, which will require a strong regulatory environment, as we discussed, and monitoring systems. So I think it's a pathway, as Harold summarized it, I think towards the end of our group, that we're moving from a very fragmented system where individual water points or water schemes are managed by all different providers. And eventually we want to move to something consolidated under some sort of single service provider and a good regulatory environment. But it's going to take a while to get there. And so we're working towards that gradually.
Great, thank you so much for that, and for adding on a bit more about the maintenance breakout and that really key point on consolidated financing structures. So last but certainly not least, I'd like to go to Dr. Sitalu Preti to share a bit more on the maintenance safety, sorry.
Thank you, Saskia. Juliana covered most of it, but one thing I want to mention is we talked about the shock, what the impact of COVID-19 has been on the water safety plans. There were a lot of communication about there is increased hygiene practices that might have resulted a positive result because of the COVID-19. People are more conscious about washing their hands in regular basis, which might have been a challenge earlier. We also talked about how there might have there has been a supply chain a problem for the household water treatment, and also chemicals that are used to test for the water and so on. So this has been seen as a problem. The other thing we talked about is like the combination of the maintenance of water supply plan, and Madan talked about the importance of sanitary inspection during the water safety plans, which might add up to the value to provide improved water for all. And Christopher mentioned how the linkage to the main town for rural towns might be important if you're trying to integrate these two components, the water safety and maintenance itself.
I'm always looking for my unmute button. Great, thank you. Thank you for adding those points as well on the safety session. So that's great. Thanks to all of you. I just have another round that I'll ask you for your thoughts on integrating maintenance and water safety. So considering how interconnected all of the aspects of water services are, and we've been talking a lot today about thinking through these things from a systems thinking perspective. My question is, do you think it would be beneficial to combine maintenance services with water safety management activities? And what do you think would be the key opportunities or key challenges for doing that? So I'll switch up the order here a little bit and go first to Dr. Ferrero, please.
Thank you, Saskia. So I believe actually that we can go above and beyond this. So integrating water safety management in the management models that are applied in small towns, rural, urban transition zones, and in rural areas. Obviously, there's a strong need to customize the model to the reality encountered in a specific location. But I believe that the point that has often been overlooked is the need to integrate all the building blocks. So not only maintenance and water safety, but being infrastructural choices, financing, operation and maintenance, and public health. So I say public health normally has been taken as a separate point, as a separate building block, but I see the strong need to integrate it into the whole group. And for instance, what I see as an integration point between operation and maintenance water safety can be, for instance, starting from a basic risk assessment where the greatest risks of a specific water supply are identified, then going on implementing risk-based monitoring consisting of both observation and water quality monitoring. So in that way, we can gather evidence of the impact of the risks that we identified. And finally, implementing preventive maintenance, so helping reducing those risks. So I can see here the full cycle of integration. Then also looking at risk assessment. So if we talk about water safety planning and sanitary inspection, those have been designed for assessing and mitigating risks while operating an existing system, right? So in a work that I'm conducting in Mozambique as a freelance consultant, we're approaching water safety management from a different angle. So we're trying to ask ourselves what can be done during the initial phase of the project cycle, and how can water safety considerations also be included during feasibility studies, siting and construction. And both water safety and maintenance implications start during design of a certain type of infrastructure. So I can go on and on, but I think I can stop here with the reflection. And if there's more time, I can add on. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much. And as someone has just commented in the chat, this really is such a big topic, and it's difficult to discuss and get a grasp on it all cohesively. But I think you've done a fantastic job with that answer, Juliana. Thank you. I'll go now to Dr. Jordan, if you could share your thoughts on this integration aspect, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons you would want to tackle these two issues together. We talked a lot in our session about, the need for performance metrics. When we talk about maintenance, we're often thinking about time to repair or reliability of a service, but those performance metrics could also include water quality standards. And then we talk about the need for a robust monitoring system against those standards and a regulatory environment to hold service providers to account. And I think all of that sort of governance structure you need around the rural water maintenance system is very similar to what you need to make water safety happen. So, I think there's a lot in the governance level that could be tackled jointly. I think whether you want your service provider doing the monitoring is something each local government is going to have to figure out who's best placed to take on each of those roles. But certainly the overall framework for regulating should encompass both of these topics.
Great, thanks very much, Dr. Jordan, for those thoughts. And yeah, I think I really do agree with you, seeing that this strong governance structures, but there's a lot of overlap in the need for that strong governance for both maintenance and water safety. So a lot that can be sort of cross-cutting there. So Dr. Upreti, would you share your thoughts on this integration with us, please? Sorry, I think you're still muted.
Sorry, my bad. Thanks, Saskia. I think it's really important to get these two things integrated, identifying maintenance-related hazards, determining and validating associated control measures, monitoring those control measures and preparing the SOPs are the key or the essential components of the water safety management plans. I don't think it's possible to realize the full benefits of water safety management plans without realizing the key components, the maintenance process itself. And there are a couple of challenges. I think the manpower resources, as we all know, might be the main challenges. But the monitoring, evaluation, learning can help with this. Such tool ensures timely flow of resources and identify operational bottlenecks in the systematic manner. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much for that. That was really concise, but I think you make a strong point about the overlap there and the need for effective maintenance to actually pull off effective water safety management. So they really need to come together. So finally, Robert Gakubia, Engineer Gakubia, could you share your thoughts on this with us, please?
Thank you very much. I think the key word here is integration. And as much as we were in two separate groups, you cannot really separate maintenance and water safety, because one of the principal objectives of the water service provider is to make sure that their water is safe and reliable. In our case, in this country, it is even in the constitution, you must provide people with safe water. But we also realize that it's a journey towards making sure that water is safe. But where do you start? You start from being proactive about how you manage your risks. And that is why going forward, in this country now, we require every water services provider, and that emphasizes the need to have an accountable governance structure. Every water services provider must prepare a water safety plan. Previously, before now, we have been looking at water quality monitoring in terms of tests. I must say these are head of pipe. We want to preempt any problem that may come that may require you to go and actually address go and test the water when damage has already occurred. So every water service provider must prepare a water safety plan, and we have actually even prepared guidelines to guide them in preparing that water safety plan, so that we are able to prevent or preempt problems before they occur. And that also adds value to your overall maintenance of the system, and adds value to whatever you give to the consumers. So for me, they cannot be separate. You must really talk about water safety and maintenance in addition to the other issues that Dr. Ferrero mentioned. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much for that. And just emphasizing there really the need for proactive risk management and strong governance structures that can make for cohesive programming. And I think that's come across really, really strongly throughout the discussions in the session today, that this ad hoc approach, ad hoc programming around rural water supplies is not going to get us where we need to go. So thank you so much to all of the panelists now, the combined panelists, and also to the panelists from the breakouts and everybody who contributed pre-recorded videos. There's been so much information coming out in the session. We are just about out of time now. We're actually over the official time already, and we're going to be kicked out of the room in a few minutes, I believe. So we'll wrap up. But as someone has asked in the chat, is there a way to have a follow-up group discussion or potentially send messages to individuals? I think for sure, you know, as a collective, a lot of us, we're going to be continuing to work in this space, and there will be a lot of future discussions going on, hopefully a lot on integrating maintenance in to the chat, and we will try and direct your questions to those people, and then hopefully they can find a way to get back to you. So that's all. Sorry, my internet connection kicked me off a little early, but that's basically all I had left to say anyway. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and thanks to all the speakers, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.